Yay! Thank you so much for speaking with me. Your work is just amazing. I was just going through everything and I'm like, amazing, star, amazing, genius, talent. It's just incredible, your body of work. Uh,
Well, thank
so
you.
we would, and then congratulations on top of that. Like,
It's
wow,
unbelievable. It's crazy. It's been quite a trip. So thank you. Yeah.
that mindset, hearing the nominations, how does that feel?
Uh, I'm still sort of settling with it. It wasn't real until friends started messaging me. Like once I knew that they had seen it outside of me sitting in front of my TV, then it started to become real. But I'm still sort of grappling with what it means, to be recognized in this way by a community I've been a part of and loved for so long.
So we got to talk about Ain't No More. I mean, the Tony Award nominated Ain't No More, where you're the sound designer, but you did so much more than just craft the sound design. What I found out is, you created this really immersive experience for not only just the audience, but then on top of that, you also provided like the voice and helped develop the character of Miss Braggs and everything else. So I wanted to know, you got the script, you're reading through the play. What is the first thing that stands out in your mind?
On the front of that script, it says "Ain't No Mo," a new comedy by Jordan E. Cooper, and there was so much that didn't strike me as funny. It struck me as just too close, too real, too clever to be ha ha funny. And so that was the first thing. It wasn't until Stevie Walker Webb, our fearless leader, you know, put it got invited me into the rehearsal room that I could start to see, oh, we're allowed to laugh at this. We're allowed to feel any sort of way. We're not supposed to just, feel one way. It's just going to be up there, and you could sort of take it as you're ready to receive it. Um, and so that was my first reaction to reading the play. But I knew it was a powerful piece. That was without doubt. It was a powerful piece.
So can you talk about going about how you block and create the sounds because you're creating this atmospheric element for the audience. How exactly do you do that? What does your mind work?
Yeah. So first, I just want to say this was a co-sound design. Jonathan Deans,
Right.
who is now a four-time Tony nominee, was my partner in crime and my collaborator throughout all of this. And we had a team of people that it wouldn't have been possible without. Um, but I think again, to bring it back to Jordan and Stevie, they had such a clear vision and they knew
Mhm.
exactly what the show needed to be. They developed it together. They had done it at the public together. They had just done it in DC at the Woolly Mammoth together. I don't know exactly in what way they were involved there, but they got to go down there and at least talk to that cast. So they have lived and breathed Ain't No Mo. And so when we got to come into their world, um, they knew that they wanted the audience to feel a certain way. And so there's, right when you walk into the theater, there's club music playing. It's a greatest hits of Black culture. And that was done by a DJ called DJ Spider. And then we took that and coordinated with the lights team so you felt like you were walking into a special event. It wasn't your typical proscenium theater, sit there and watch and then clap and go catch the train. It was always supposed to be a very engaging event. Um, and we knew that it was going to break down into a couple different things. One was going to be the general soundscapes that needed to happen in the show to help set our locations. One was going to be sound effects. We've got this huge, massive plane that's got to take off eventually. It's got to shake the building. The script makes no secret of that. Um, and then we knew we needed this music that was going to sort of happen between these vignettes of our show that needed to be in communication with those scenes. So Jonathan and I went through the script and we just looked at what every moment could be. We drafted what certain things could be. Stevie would challenge us to go as far as we could. There was one time he said, what would it sound like if you took Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech and mixed it with Megan the Stallion doing WAP, Cardi B and Megan the Stallion. So I said, okay. And we did a draft of that and it almost made it in the show. But then we found different ways and better ways to express that mix of the sacred and the profane. So it was just, I have to give all due credit to the guidance that just knew what it needed to be, that gave us that free space to try things.
So when composing or co-composing the original music with this, do you lead by what the scene is actually how it's written on the page, or is it the underlining emotions of each character that they may not express verbally?
Yeah. Typically, if I'm going to approach composition, there will be that idea of capturing some of that subtext. Here, so many things wanted to just be obvious. We didn't need too many composed moments. Um, a lot of it's the organ work, which was done by Sterling Overshone, an amazing organist and musician. Um, and then there were little things like the newsreel in one of our scenes, and so you're just sort of writing pastiche that's going to help the audience to latch onto the moment. It's not going to pull them out of what they're seeing, and it's going to allow them to stay focused on that brilliant writing and the humor of the moment and those amazing performances we got from the stage. So it was a little more on the nose this time.
Right. So also speaking of the vignettes, they're spread throughout the play. How do you find the beat or the moment within that where it doesn't kind of overwhelm the other what's going on stage?
Yeah, I think we realized early on that every single vignette could be its own world. And
Mhm.
so all we had to do was to be true to a given moment rather than worrying about the overall through line of what it needed to be. So the music was never trying to pull attention back to itself in a way that would not work with the scene. Um, we had an amazing mixer at the sound desk, Andrew Ferry, and he just had such a great sense of when something could be pulled out because the scene was ready to go. So it was always about serving what was happening on stage, and the music was had to be crafted in a way that was clever enough that if you got it, if you saw that we were doing ludicrous mixed with something else, you you could appreciate that. But if you missed it, that was okay too, because you can go right back into the scene and still enjoy the show.
So because of the vast scope of music and also the vast scope of Black representation and not a monolith, did that find that incorporating all the different pieces in the music, was it overwhelming? Because there's so many things that could be included.
Yes, it was overwhelming. That was one of the trickiest parts of the show. Is that I think part of the challenges given to me and to Jonathan was to capture the heights of the Black American experience and all this wonderful stuff that Black artists have contributed in creating what we consider to be popular American culture, but also the lows, which is unfortunately the things which have happened to us so often, and so bouncing between those two things to try to grab a full spectrum um, was challenging because you've got 30 seconds in which to show this whole spectrum, and so you have to find the thing that's going to catch the ear of the audience very quickly and take them to a place. So if it's a name like Trayvon Martin that might stand out amongst sadly too many names of Black bodies that have been brutalized by the police in this country, um, you know one name can really paint a picture. And so scouring through hours of insurrection courtroom footage, and scouring through hours of unfortunately Sandra Bland tapes, or all these things to find that one moment was really tricky. But on the other hand, when it came to the highs, and it was like, okay, well, which Stevie Wonder piece do we want to include? Well, which, Anita Baker song do we want to include? Which, like we were spoiled for choice because there's just such a rich tapestry that Black culture has created in this country, that it sort of became fun. It was necessary. It was necessary release.
Do you find this easier in terms of the music as opposed to it being completely original composition?
Uh, I think I like both. I don't. What I liked about this was that it got to be both at the same time,
Mhm.
because the songs are very mixed up and mashed up. There was a sense that we were creating something new, very much in the tradition of hip hop. It wasn't let's just have a needle drop and let's play this record as people know it. It was okay, all right, we've got this song going. Now can we interpolate a little bit of Nas, or we've got this great joke that we've got, you know, Last Dance by Donna Summer playing because this is the last chance before you hop on this flight back to Africa. And I realized, that just works a little too well with Juice by Lizzo. And so we got to mash that up in a way that felt like we were composing and creating something new. And it kept it vibrant and exciting in the room.
Would it be fair to say that your inspiration was basically everyone and everything all at once?
I think so. I think so. I mean, yeah, you just have to keep your eyes and ears open and say, could this work here? Could this, you're constantly going through audio swatches and just saying, does this match? Does this feel right for this moment? We would be in rehearsals, and tech can be a slow and arduous process. And so we would have the cast on stage, and they would start singing Kirk Franklin out of nowhere, or they would start singing some song that was one of their favorites. And I would try to do my best to pull it up real quick so that it would play along. But those were little moments of inspiration and remembering, oh right, I didn't think of that song, but Fedna might have. Or I didn't think of that song, but um, that was the real fun thing. So yeah, there was inspiration everywhere in that room.
Did you work closely with the actors in terms of crafting that for their scenes in particular and kind of getting that input in as well?
I joked at the opening night party. Marchand, one of our passengers, I think he's from Philadelphia, and I asked him, "Did you catch that moment with Boys to Men in there? It was a little Cooley High Harmony. That was for you. In fact, I snuck in a little bit from each of your hometowns." He said, "Really?" And I said, "No, I'm totally kidding." But I wanted to. I would. What we did do in working with the cast was to figure out how they wanted to use their instrument, their voices to convey these characters, because everybody's playing multiple characters. And so what Marchand sounds like in our first vignette is not what he sounds like in our third vignette. And so to honor that, the microphones are gained differently, they're driven differently, they're doing different things to help support these choices that the actors have made in conjunction with the writer and the director. So that's where we really got to work hand in hand with them.
Now, kind of speaking of the microphones, I'm really interested in that because the technical aspect of with them creating new voices and obviously new characters. How does that work in terms of, I don't know the technology, the proper terms of it, but making sure the pitches and the tones and what we hear is different?
Yeah. So I learned a lot about this on this project, actually, because Jonathan Deans is he's such a tried and true hand. He knows all this stuff so well. And I would watch as he would turn up the reverb just a little bit, or turn it down to get it out of the way so that the thing that the actor's doing naturally worked. When Crystal's playing Black, there's deaths and resurrections that are happening within this vignette, and he would find the coolest cutting edge ways of affecting the voice live in a way that I don't think could have happened, 10 years ago in the theater. And it really added something that I thought was really special. And then we would sit there and he would say, all right, the center speaker, let's just have 1 millisecond more delay. And we would listen together and see, does this feel better? Does this feel more present or not? And you sort of have to just trust your ears. And of course, that wealth of experience that he brought to the table.
Right. By learning on the spot and learning on the job, can you kind of explain, well, not explain, but can you talk about how you will take some of those aspects into future projects?
Absolutely. My whole life has been about picking things up and taking it to the next thing. So much of my work has been as an electronic music designer. So doing the keyboard programming or the playback work, not just in theater, but sometimes for pop acts. And every little thing I do, if I choose to let it, can inform what I do next. So I'm going to go back next and revisit Beetlejuice, which is a show that I did on Broadway as an electronic music designer. And we're going to do it on a cruise ship. And so I want to see not just how can I go back to Beetlejuice, but how can I bring what I've learned from Ain't No Mo and use it to sort of make Beetlejuice feel as exciting as it can in this new setting.
Does the environment change how it sounds by working on a stage as opposed to now we're going into a cruise ship to say a live performance?
Yeah, cruise ships have amazing sound systems. They have amazing theaters that are built onto them these days, from my experience. The difference is you don't always have space for the same size band that you might have in a Broadway house, particularly with Beetlejuice, where we were in the Marquee Theater most recently. So there are there's just a slightly different orchestration done by Chris Kukul, who I think it's one of the best orchestrations I've heard in a long while. And so he's going to make some choices and say, this is what we really need, this is what we don't need, this is what might be able to go into a track, this is what just doesn't it's not as critical to the texture of the show for this space. And my job there is to support him as much as possible and to work with our wonderful sound team who have now put the show up on tour and even in Korea. Um, and they get to do it in another space, and I get to help them and learn from them along the way.
Right. I'm interested also because not only that, you were also the voice of Miss Bragg. So how is that you use the sound in terms of how did you use your sound to create this character?
Yeah, so I look at Miss Bag as this wonderful griot, this teller of the African American story, and so she needed to be everything. That's high energy and it's wonderful about the Black experience, and so that's jazz, and that's clips from the '60s. That's where we could find. I think there's a clip of Langston Hughes speaking. We found a clip of him saying "I too," um, and so it was what are all these things, and how much can we jam it together in a way that the audience can still pick things apart and hear things, but we didn't want it to be linear. So the voice of this bag um, was just about pacing and spatialization. There's always multiple tracks going at once, and they're coming out of two different places in the theater, if not more. I guess we had them coming from the back also. So they're coming out of all these different points around the theater. So everybody's hearing everything, but getting a slightly different experience based on where they're choosing to look or what they're choosing to focus on. And that was maybe the most exciting part of the entire process for me, was to see this bag um, not only get dressed up and redressed by our props team and evolve as a physical prop, but also to start making sound. And then when Jordan would come and grab onto her and touch her, you could feel the electricity in a way that I know what the sound is. I know what Adam Honore's lighting is doing in that moment. But the sum was greater, the whole was greater than the sum of its parts, and it was really
Yeah.
special in that way.
Were you able to help collaborate in terms of what was being said, in terms of her story?
I was given I was given sort of free reign as far as what might come out of Miss Bag. There were a few favorite things that were just in the mind of Stevie when of Stevie, our director, and also of Jordan when he wrote it. I think Whitney Houston singing the national anthem was an iconic moment that they wanted to include.
Mhm.
Um, the script calls for Tupac and Biggie, but they didn't say which bits of either. Um, Maybe one or two other things were very specific things that were given to me. But I got to say, between reading the script and then actually delivering, I was sort of paralyzed by the grandness of Miss Bag. So
Mhm.
I let her live in my head. I let her live in my soul. I let her live in my body. But I didn't commit anything to anywhere because it felt like too much. It felt too easy to fail or misstep. You know, um, and Stevie came to me and he said, Taylor, I want to have a conversation with you. I'm getting really nervous. We're getting really close to teching these scenes with Miss Bag, and I haven't heard anything, and I don't know what to do about that. And he was a real gentleman about it. And I said, great. I knew it was time. I knew he was coming. He was cashing in.
Mhm.
And so we made plans to meet up, and we hopped on a Zoom. Um, we weren't able to meet, but we hopped on a Zoom for I want to say 4 hours. But right before that, I went to the gym, cleared my mind, sat down, and in about an hour put together a draft of everything that Miss Bag needed to do in the show. And he got on there and he said, "Can I hear it again?" And he listened to it maybe 5 or 6 times and said, "This is beautiful. It's wonderful. I don't know what I was worried about." And it changed a little bit from there, but by and large, it was that first throw at the wall where he knew that I had been digesting it, even if I hadn't put it down exactly.
So lastly, what does Ain't No More mean to you?
Oh gosh, Ain't No Mo contains multitudes, you know. It is this wonderful sadness. It is this bittersweet thing. It is this idea, not to just pull from the script directly, but Obama's elected and there's not going to be any more. There ain't going to be no more Shuck. There ain't going to be no more, like there ain't going to be no more stop. There ain't going to be no more frisk. All these negative things we're going to be able to shake off and feel free and move forward into a brighter future. But we know that that's not what happened. We know that, there's only so much the president can do. We know that the nation backlashed in a lot of ways, and we ended up with a president after that didn't necessarily embody that same hope. And so Ain't No Mo is, to me, this reminder that we keep going, that we keep trying to get back to that hope, that we keep looking for the thing. But we there's a cautiousness, there's a once bitten twice shy about it, and that conflict to me is a beautiful thing to hold. It's it doesn't have to be simple, it doesn't have to be easy, but Ain't No More sort of embodies that conflict.
Would you go on the plane or stay?
That's a great question. That's a great question. I don't know that there's a great answer. Listen, in 2019, I got rid of my apartment. I was in Africa. I went over to Kenya. I was I went from there to Ethiopia to Ghana, which I had been to before, and I was there for a few months. I had my mom over. I was living my best life in Africa. I needed a break from the city. I love the theater, and I needed to just step aside from it because I had such a great success, a run of success that I it was a little much to handle. And so I took a page out of Dave Chappelle's book and said, I'm bouncing to Africa. Until the pandemic shut it down, and I was stuck in Egypt with my wife for a month and change, longer than we expected to be there. I had spent about 2 months in Egypt. So coming back and doing this show is sort of cathartic to me, because I was thinking about my time in Africa and how that was sort of robbed from me. But that said, I don't know that I could give up what America is, what America could be, well, and it's an idea, but I think it's a good idea.
Well, is it an idea that is based in reality, or is it still just an idea of what it could be?
I think America. I think the fight for that idea, even if it's never attainable, that journey is more important than the destination. I'd like to see us get to more equality, more acceptance, more, you know, any beautiful buzzword that shouldn't just be a buzzword. It should be real things that we're attaining. But I know I'd be foolish if I said there's not going to be struggle on the way there, you know. But I've been very fortunate to travel. I'm in Australia right now. I've seen things in different parts of the world that let me know that we have it good in a lot of ways. Not in every way. We're not perfect. We're not right all the time. We're far from it. Um, but I know that there are things that we got right. Um, and so it's that conflict, just like Ain't No Mo. It's that conflict. I don't know.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for speaking to me, and congratulations. You're amazing.
Dana, thank you. I'm so happy to know you. I've been reading your articles and on your Twitter. I'm envious of your time with the Disney upfront, everything you're writing about Echo, everything you're doing. I mean, I'm just happy to know you and to be able to follow your work. Your bio on the Koalition is amazing. So just keep doing what you're doing, and thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for speaking to me. Thank you for everything. And congratulations. And I'll be watching the Tonys. It's live now again. So yay.
It's back on. We can all watch. I love it.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. You too.